So I want to kick off the brand new year with a Mini-ITX build inside the most talked about case, the Performance 1M by Antec. To be honest, I've been neglecting SFF builds on the channel, but no more. This will be the year of SFF. Anyways, for this build, I thought we could do something just a little insane because after all, it is the new year and I figured we can start off with a bang. So originally, I wanted to go with the Ryzen 5 7600 for the CPU because this is the more logical choice given the lower TDP and the cooling requirements, but I feel like this is a little boring. I say we throw in the Ryzen 7 9800X 3D processor instead because reasons. Before we begin, I do want to give a huge thanks to VIPReceiptKey.com who is sponsoring today's video. As you guys know by now, I've been using VIP or CD Key for the past 10 years buying CD keys for all the PC builds on the channel. Instead of paying full price from Microsoft, that is where I get all of my keys from. They do sell keys for Windows 10 and Windows 11. If you guys plan on picking one up, please use my code TS20 to get an extra discount. After checking out, just visit the user center section on the top right corner of your page and then go into your orders to reveal the key. And then all you gotta do is copy and paste that into the activation settings of Windows and you are good to go. I wanna see how high the temps are gonna get and if there's going to be any system instability due to thermal throttling, okay? Like I know the temps are gonna be high, that's not the point of this experiment. I just wanna know if the temps are going to affect the actual PC's performance. I mean, after all, these CPUs are designed to withstand high temps. I mean, obviously it's not recommended to run your components at high temperatures because that will shorten the lifespan of your PC, but again, for science reasons, let's just see how far we can get away with this. Worst case scenario, we'll just swap back to the Ryzen 5 7600 if things get a little too heated. Okay, so for the motherboard, we're going with the brand new ROG Strix B850i, which is basically just a refreshed version of the previous gen B650 boards. And these are aimed to fill the gap between last gen products and flagship chipsets already on the market. But the main takeaway with the new B850 boards is the potential support for PCI 5.0 on the primary graphics card slot and support for onboard USB 4. I do want to give a huge thanks to Newegg for coming in clutch and providing the CPU for our builds. These have not been easy to source lately, guys, because they have been out of stock. So we are truly appreciative and grateful to partner with Newegg on this project and also future projects. Now in ITX builds, you typically only have 2 DIMM slots to work with, so you gotta make the most of it. In this case, we are tossing in a 48GB kit from G.Skill. These are the Trident Z5 Neo RGBs with a 6400 MHz frequency and CL32 timing. So really fast sticks, absolutely overkill for gaming, but the extra capacity will help out with heavy workloads like 3D modeling and editing in 4K. Also, it's AMD Expo compatible, so we can just enable the XMP profile in the BIOS. And for storage, M.2 SSDs are usually what's preferred in Mini-ITX builds because it doesn't take up any extra space. Not to mention, you don't have to deal with any extra cables. And since we have PCI Gen 5 support for both the graphics card and NVMe SSDs, I say we take advantage of that and toss in a Gen 5 SSD from Corsair. This is the MP700 Pro, and 4 terabytes is more than plenty for really anything. And to help with the installation, I'll be using our trusty new electric screwdriver kit, which by the way is finally back on stock on Amazon. I know this has been out of stock for the past few months, but if you're in the market for an electric screwdriver kit, I do recommend picking this one up because it's got a more powerful motor and you get 3 torque settings to work with, a built-in flashlight, and this is the best part, a 61 precision bit set inside this satisfying case. Check this out. Oh, so satisfying. All right, well, here goes nothing, guys. For the cooler, we're going with the Noctua NH-L965. This is a lot smaller than I thought. What do you mean by that? Oh, geez. Mistakes were definitely made. We can't back out now. We're far too deep. Well, I mean, at least it doesn't overhang the RAM slot. So we can use high-profile RAM sticks like the G.Skill Tridents. All right, I think we're just about ready to build inside the Antec Performance 1M, and just holding this already, it feels very light. I do have to say, the attention to detail is there. If you look really closely, you can see some really nice designs on the mesh panels. Look how clean the front looks. Very minimal. You got a USB Type-C port in the front and a very satisfying power button. Oh, that is just beautiful. And the red accents. The thing that I like about this case so much are the red accents. You got a red tab up here that helps you pop off the top panel. But once you remove the rest of the panels, which are completely toolless, by the way, you are greeted with this amazing red interior that just pops and adds this beautiful contrast against the black components once you start building inside here. Now on the other side, it might throw off a certain color scheme. Let's say if you're going with an all black build or maybe black and white. But personally, even if you put the panels back on, it's not gonna be that visible. Unless you go with the clear side panel. That might be the only deal breaker for some people out there. But personally, I am loving this red accent in here. I might just call this build Mini Red. Who knows? We'll see what happens. So similar to the Fractal Terra that I built in last year, along with other Mini-ITX cases, this central support bracket is adjustable. I can shift this center bracket either way to make room for chunkier components. So I don't expect any issues with clearance in this build. All I gotta do is flip it upside down, remove the bottom plate, and just loosen the 4 thumb screws, basically 2 on the top and then 2 on the bottom. And I'm able to shift the entire bracket either forward or backward. I love the built-in ruler here as well, so you can make sure it's symmetrical on both sides. That is really good designing. All right, let's do this. Oh, I'm getting excited. I'm getting excited. This is starting to reignite the passion inside me for a Mini-ITX build. It's been a while, guys. It has been a while. What would have been cool was to do like a custom hardline build in here, but unfortunately the case doesn't support 240mm radiators. We can only install up to 2 140mm fans on the bottom. That's basically going to be our main source of cooling, aside from the CPU cooler and the fans from the GPU. But yeah, we do have 2 120mm fans from Antec that we're going to be adding on the bottom for intake. But if we need additional cooling, I will bring in the big boys. 2 140s from Noctua instead. My logic is, if we have the space for it, why not maximize the entire bracket and install 140mm fans instead of 120? But we'll get there when we get there. We also got our included PCI Gen 4 riser cable, so let's go ahead and plug this in now. And just like that, the motherboard is installed, and it looks like we have plenty of clearance left in the front, so I feel like we can move the center bracket towards the side panel to make room for the graphics card in the back. So let's just push it by 1 centimeter. And for the graphics card, we do have a few options here. We can play it safe and go with the ProArt RTX 4070 Ti Super, or if we really want to have some fun, we can go with an RTX 4080 Super instead. It's just going to come down to how much more clearance we have in the back. All right, let's see if the panel closes. Oh, beautiful, okay. We have about 1 centimeter of space between the inner panel and the CPU cooler, so I think that's gonna be more than plenty. It's gonna be pulling in cold air from the outside anyway, so you want it as close as possible to the mesh panel. Up next is the power supply, and Antec was kind enough to send over their SF850X, which is PCI 5.1 ready. And this is 80+ gold certified, fully modular. And when you're doing a Mini-ITX build, you normally want to go with a fully modular power supply. That way you have the choice of plugging in the cables that you only need. Now the case does support only SFX power supply, so either SFX or SFXL, and the L stands for large, by the way. Meaning it's slightly larger than traditional SFX, and you normally see SFXL power supplies on higher wattage, so like a 1000 watt power supply. And if you're going with super high-end specs like a 9950X and a 4090, you want to go with an SFXL power supply to make sure that your components have enough juice. But we're not going super high-end for this build, so 850 watts is more than plenty. Okay, so the power supply installation is very simple. It just goes right here next to the motherboard, and you do have the option of either facing the fan outwards or inwards. But I think it just makes sense to have the fan facing outwards. That way it's pulling in cold air from outside the case and exhausting it from the top. We have nothing on the top to block the airflow, so like I said, for thermals, it just makes the most sense to face it this way. Another good tip I can give you guys if you're building inside of a Mini-ITX case and you're using an RTX graphics card is to go with a power supply that has a 12VH power cable included. That way you're only using a single cable to plug the power supply to the graphics card instead of using multiple 8-pin PCI cables instead. So this one cable essentially replaces like 2 of these. And this as a result eliminates cable clutter in your build and you have a much cleaner system. Okay, we are pretty much nearing the end of the build. Before I work on the cable management, I say we install the fans on the bottom. And honestly, I feel like we should just throw in 140mm fans at the bottom and call it a day. We do have the space for it, so why not maximize it and go with larger fans. Alright guys, so I finished installing the fans on the bottom of the case, and I'm actually really glad I went with the Noctua fans because I was able to add red vibration pads in the corners of the fans, which really contributes to the beautiful black and red color scheme. But now, the question remains, what graphics card should I go with? The RTX 4070 Ti Super, which is the safer route, or do we go all out and toss in a 4080 Super? I think you already know the answer to that one. Let's go with the 4080 Super. I doubt this fits, but you know what? Let's try it out. Why not? No shot. No shot this fits. Oh my God, we're off by like a few millimeters. Hold on. Hold on, hold on. Piece. Let's plug it in. Okay, so if you guys can see, the graphics card is kind of sticking out towards this end because there's really nothing that's pushing the GPU towards the center bracket. We do have both of the screws tightened over here, so this part's kind of straight, but the further it goes out, the more it's being pushed out towards the case, and that's because of the cable that's being ran behind the graphics card. But I feel like once we close the side panel, it should be fine. Let's see. Oh, let's go. So we have about 1.5 centimeters on this end, but closer to the edge here, it's almost touching it. I would say probably 2-3 millimeters away from the side panel. It's hard to see. Alright guys, so the build is done, and I gotta say right off the bat, building inside this case was smoother than building in most other Mini-ITX cases in the past. I feel like Antec has done such a good job on simplifying the build process for this case. But what really stood out to me the most was the attention to detail that they put in this case, along with the build quality. All the removable side panels are made out of aluminum, which contributes to its lightweight, but also you got the center bracket over here, which is made out of pure steel, which is what you want because all the heavier components are attached to it. So you got this combination of aluminum and steel, and some areas are plastic as well. So yeah, overall, excellent construction quality. And now the fun begins. We power this on and see what I've got myself into. So I think the first logical step would be to go with the mesh panels. That way we're getting the best possible airflow. And then once we kind of see what we're dealing with, we can either bring in the full clear side panel or the hybrid side panel with the mesh on the bottom. And honestly, I think we might have to undervolt the processor as well, just so it's running a little cooler. And in most cases, it does bring us more performance as well. But again, we'll see what happens. All right, here goes nothing, guys. Okay. It boots. That's a good start. Okay, beautiful. Go into the BIOS. I'm not going to enable XMP just yet. I just want to see how stable the system is and check out the current temps before I do any overclocking or undervolting on the processor. So let's just skip straight to the desktop. It's fairly quiet. I mean, it's idling, but still, it's a good start. All right, guys, so I got the PC up and running, and we are about 15 minutes into the finals game, 1440p, high settings. And I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I was expecting higher temps. For some reason, the CPU is only hovering between 80 and 82 degrees Celsius, which is wild considering we're just using a small, low-profile cooler and just 2 intake fans on the bottom. I was expecting like mid 85 to low 90s, if I'm being honest. And this is stock, you guys. This is before any undervolting. So it could only get better from here, I would hope. In terms of clock speeds, the CPU is at a constant 5.2 gigahertz, and we're pulling pretty close to 90 watts, which is to be expected. But performance-wise, we're actually getting pretty close to 200 FPS. Oh, this guy just got deleted. Yeah, 82 watts looks like is the peak for the temperature. And the fans have ramped up, so this is what it sounds like on full load. The graphics card is actually doing a lot better. We got peak temps of 65 degrees Celsius, which is good considering how close the side panel is to the GPU. Okay, let's go to undervolt this and see what happens. All right, guys, so we're in the BIOS. Let's go ahead and undervolt this biznitch. First thing I'm gonna do is set the XMP profile, just so we are taking advantage of the extra performance. I know on the memory it said that it's Xbook compatible, so I'm confident that we can achieve the 6400 megahertz without a problem. And then we're gonna scroll down here to Precision Boost Overdrive, and we're just going to set the curve optimizer to -40. It's a very simple undervolt. We're not gonna do anything complicated. I know these chips can do -40 without a problem, so we'll just set it at that, and then we'll hit F10, save the changes, and restart. All right, guys, here we are back in the finals with the new undervolt settings, and my eyes do not believe themselves. We are getting about 12 degrees cooler temps on the CPU, which is insane considering we're still keeping the 5.2 gigahertz clock speed on the CPU. We're also pulling in much less wattage compared to before. I think about 15 to 20 watts less compared to stock. The CPU package power before was around 90 watts peak, and now we're pulling in about 70. So yeah, about 20 watts less, all without having any impact on our FPS, you guys. That's crazy to say. Yeah, we're getting the same frames in the 200s consistently. Same clock speeds, lower temps, and lower wattage. I mean, this is unbelievable. Is there anything the CPU can't do? This is why the 9800X3D processor is the GOAT. Oh, not to mention how much more quiet the system is. Check this out. That is insane. And just for fun, I went ahead and removed all the side panels from the case to see how much cooler we can get all the components down, and by the looks of it, quite a bit. CPU dropped down to 67 degrees Celsius, and the graphics card is now under 60 C. And personally, I don't mind running the PC like this. It looks so much better with the panels off. That is how you get a dub, baby. Even with the side panels off though, I mean, you still can't hear anything. Check this out. That is so impressive. Also, just for fun, I wanted to see how the temps would be if I put on the optional clear side panels instead of the mesh. So I went ahead and replaced both the GPU side and the CPU side, and the temps instantly started climbing within just 2 minutes. The GPU peaked at 86 degrees Celsius, while the CPU peaked at 91 degrees, and this is what it sounded like. Needless to say, while the clear side panels are a nice way of showing off the internals, the trade-off for higher temps simply isn't worth it. I mean, do keep in mind that we are using high-end components in here, so if you were to go with something like an i5 or a Ryzen 5 for the CPU and an RTX 4060 equivalent for the graphics card, then temps would be noticeably cooler while using the clear side panels. Either way, I think what Antec has built here is nothing short of incredible. You got the compact design, you got the airflow, and you got the support for large components, all packaged inside a well-made premium Mini-ITX case that offers the best building experience in an SFF build. And I will go on record and say that this is currently my favorite Mini-ITX case that I've built in so far. But Antec, if you're watching this video, please make a slightly taller version that supports custom water cooling. I'll be waiting. As always, links to everything, including the case, will be posted down below. If you guys are enjoying the Mini-ITX builds and you want to see more SFF content on the channel, make sure to backhand that like button for me. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you very soon in the next one.